I protested it for almost 3 months, and finally I said, well, I think I better do this. you know, and I made an outline because I know how to write a book, and I started writing it. And it was almost like automatic writing. It truly was helping me. It was just channeling every all the stuff that I had studied, all my experiences, and the new information I was getting. Just was an amazing dance, and it just came out. And I was so excited. I became obsessed with writing it. And then I wasn't even going to release it because I'm a jazz guy. What's a jazz guy doing? Writing a metaphysical book. I thought this is not in my wheelhouse, and it got pretty adamant about it. So I hired somebody that knew how to get it on Amazon. And we released it, and within a few days, it was an Amazon #1 bestseller in metaphysics.
Hello, my name's Imagine, the host of Master of Your Crafts podcast. Learning from leaders who are continuously inspired, passionate, and driven to align with their soul purpose, sharing their gifts to bring healing to others. The music is composed by Rebecca Everett. I had the pleasure of talking to John Novello, who is a Grammy-winning jazz pianist, best-selling author, and a motivational speaker. Guided since his childhood by the invisible architect, he mentors others to harness their quantum energy to design their perfect life. Discover his transformative wisdom in music, books, and mentorship. Enjoy this interesting and delightful conversation with John. Thank you for watching and listening. And welcome to John. How are you, John?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm well. I'm excited for us to have this conversation, for you to share your experiences as, dare I say, self-proclaimed, or other people have given you the title of a music philosopher, of truly understanding the dance of music and how it weaves in and out of our lives based on experiences and the joy that it brings and extends to individuals, but you being part of that ebb and flow and beautiful dance of that process. So
it's been quite a dance for sure.
So thank you for taking time for this conversation. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So I'm going to start with a really big, bold question in terms of your experiences and your passion of music, but also mirroring together the bigger nuggets of life that possibly even happens through experiences and as life unfolds naturally and as we all evolve and grow, tapping into something bigger beyond you and I, and marrying that with this beautiful synergy of music, which is your muse and instrument of choice. How do you manage, and how have you seen that dance evolve over the years?
Well, I started when I was 3 years old, when I saw a TV show and pointed to the TV, and there was a keyboard on it, and that led me and my parents to find a music teacher. And from then on in, it's been quite a dance. And I've been blessed with the reason why I pointed to the TV, which is in my new book, The Invisible Architect, How to Design Your Perfect Life Within, is at 3 years old, I heard a voice. And you don't have much discernment at 3 years old. All I knew is some voice was telling me to point to the TV screen, and I did. And my parents figured that I wanted to. What the heck is that? That's weird. I have my phone up. I don't know where that's coming from. Sorry about that. That I wanted music lessons, which I did. And whether it's a past life recognition or just, some serendipity thing, we started, and that launched my whole musical career. And I just rolled with it, as they say. And I always had this inner voice which I now call the invisible architect, the
Mm.
quantum intelligent energy field that we all have that is responsible for creation and permeates everything. I had this voice, this best friend that used to talk to me. I shouldn't say used to, still does, and helped me in all of my success. And while I was studying and trying to master my musical craft, I always was interested in learning more about philosophy and knowledge, and you know it. And so later, 4 years ago, that became a book where I decided that I think I should pay it forward and tell people all the knowledge and interactions I had with this inner voice, this higher self, to pay it forward so they can help create and design their lives.
Hmm.
Hence the music philosopher stuff, because I
Right.
never thought that I was going to be involved in any kind of self-help, personal development, or philosophy other than for myself. But
Yes.
it's went a lot further. Go figure.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. When we open ourselves up to receive it, then definitely there's a lot more to that relationship than we can even imagine, right?
Absolutely.
Through this journey of your own relationship with a higher version of yourself and this greater wisdom that lives outside of us, through that relationship and through the physical life experiences, because that's been quite an experience for you, what has that taught you about yourself? And does it define who John is right now?
Well, my experience and research and beliefs uh, is that we are all eternal spiritual beings, and we are here to service others in whatever form we've agreed to or decided, or it's been scripted for us. And we learn these lessons through the school of hard knocks and trials and tribulations. And um, the physical and the spiritual, uh, I can't even separate them because who I, John Novello, am is a combination of spirit, mind, and body. And I don't think I would have accomplished what I have and what I continue to do had I not followed the spiritual path along with the career and the physical path as well. They're inextricably related.
When did you realize that there were two of the one?
Well, like I said, at 3 years old, I had that sort of command to point to the TV, but
Hmm.
I didn't have much discernment. And as I grew older and older and started studying and reading, I started to realize, oh, this is an interesting inner voice, higher self, maybe God, I'm not sure. And as I studied more and more, I realized that I was not just this flesh, I was a composite being of spirit, mind, body. And I'm glad I did because I followed that path and that voice, and it's given me so much advice and consultation that uh, if somebody were to say, what would you have become without this invisible architect? I don't even know. because
Mm.
because to me, yes, it's separate, but it is one. And I believe this quantum intelligent energy field permeates us and everybody and is available as long as we become aware of it, which can take study, and as long as we invite it into our lives, because we do appear to have free will. So
Right,
we can choose abundance, we can choose scarcity, we can choose pain, we can choose
right.
suffering. Once we realize that, we can start designing and creating a much better life.
Do you recall that epiphany moment to you, for you, that made the connection of, I can't separate these, or was it a conversation that you had with somebody that you realize I'm my music and my mission and who I am and this external voice, this higher voice, are actually the same. We're not separate. Was there a definitive moment when that revealed
Well,
itself for you?
absolute. Well, yes and no. It was a combination of so many coincidences that all of a sudden I realized there was no such thing as coincidences. I'd hear that voice like I heard when I was 3, and it would say, do this or do that. And if I did it, things happened great. And if I ignored it, things didn't happen great. And I started realizing that I'm blessed as long as I choose that blessing. And I remember I was 18 years old and I was in a band. And I grew up in Erie, Pennsylvania, and I was playing at a Ramada Inn, and it was a snowstorm. And the manager comes up and says, "Hey, I think you guys can go home. Nobody's going to come."
Mm.
But the invisible architect, this intelligent energy, was apparently orchestrating something that I didn't know about. So we were getting ready to leave. And next thing you know, the manager comes up and he says, "Hey, there's a whole busload of people and a couple other people that have just pulled into the parking lot. Do you mind go back on stage and play?" Of course, we always like to play. And so we did. And after the set, some guy comes up to me. Says, "Hey, you don't know me. I don't know you, but maybe this is a serendipity meeting because I'm a producer. I've been traveling from New York City to Cleveland and had to go through your town, Erie, Pennsylvania, and the snow got so bad that I decided to pull off the road because I saw the Ramada Inn. I was about to go to sleep, and my little intuition said, hey, go down to the bar and have a drink." So there he was, and he said, "Listen, are you guys signed to a record deal?" And I didn't even know much about that at 17 or 18.
Mhm.
And I said, "No, don't think so." He goes, "Well, you are now." And 3 weeks later, I got a contract in the mail from Mainline Records, which was a subsidiary of MGM Grand. And we started recording a single, which became top 10 in the tri-state area, which started to launch my career. And
Yeah.
didn't know until I found out later that he was a famous producer. And what are the odds that he just drives in a snowstorm and pulls over and goes in? I mean, so many things have had to happen for that
Yeah.
to happen.
Absolutely.
And that was a main, like, oh, I get it. I get it. And then it kept happening to the point as I got into college and started studying, and I started reading philosophical books and all kinds of spiritual development books. And I started putting two together and realized that we all have this spiritual interaction and connection as long as we realize it and as long as we invite it into our lives.
Absolutely. But that's a choice we get to make, right?
Exactly.
And it seems like it was one that you welcomed very early on to be in relationship and to witness, perhaps based on the experiences that you've had of the past, that allowed that synergy to happen, that dance to really be in flow.
Exactly. And it just kept getting better and better. And every once in a while, if I went into self-doubt and I ignored the instruction or the coincidences, and things wouldn't go so right. I mean, I can remember one day it was as simple as I was about to get on a freeway in Boston where I would study music. And the voice said, "No, don't go up that ramp. It's a traffic jam." And it was a Sunday morning. And my logical mind took over and said, "Oh, it's Sunday morning. There's not going to be any traffic." And sure enough, I drove up the ramp and got to the top, and it was like a parking lot. And I went,
Mhm.
"Oh my, what is wrong? What is it going to take for me to have faith?" I've had so many of these things, but we're human.
Yeah,
We are in bodies, and it's sometimes very difficult to keep that spiritual hookup and trust it.
absolutely. What are some of the attributes that keep you connected, not only to your purpose in terms of music, but in your own alignment, in your own beingness?
Well, what the attributes? Is that what you said?
Mm-hmm,
Um, well, the thing that keeps me connected is now I'm 100% positive uh, about this intelligent energy force that seems to be guiding my life and blessing my life. And my faith is 100%. And I think that faith is what keeps the connection in, because if you go into doubt, that is sort of like separation. And the more separation you get, the less it seems to work. And I think that's got to do with free will. If I were to personify this process and you thought of a being that's just sitting there waiting to help you, and if you go into doubt, it sort of just goes, okay, well, he's in the doubt, he doesn't need my help. But if you have faith and you invite it into your life and you allow the guidance to occur, the hookup stays. And that's why 4 years ago, I ended up writing this book, The Invisible Architect, because I woke up one day and the inner voice said, you need to pay it forward. And I kind of went, what do you mean? Well, you need to write about this. I said, no, I'm a jazz musician. The books that I write have to do with music and music education. The philosophy part of me is just for my own self. No, it was very adamant. You need to write. I'll help you. It was as clear as you and I talking. I protested it for almost 3 months, and finally I said, well, I think I better do this. And I made an outline because I know how to write a book, and I started writing it. And it was almost like automatic writing. It truly was helping me. It was just channeling all the stuff that I had studied, all my experiences, and the new information I was getting just was an amazing dance, and it just came out. And I was so excited. I became obsessed with writing it. And then I wasn't even going to release it because I'm a jazz guy. What's a jazz guy doing? Writing a metaphysical book? I thought, this is not in my wheelhouse. And it got pretty adamant about it. So I hired somebody that knew how to get it on Amazon. We released it, and within a few days, it was an Amazon #1 bestseller in metaphysics. A jazz guy, a #1 bestseller in metaphysics. I mean, I had some of my peers and friends call me up and say, when did this start happening? When were you doing? I said, well, it was something I was doing on the side, but I'm not complaining. And then that launched my whole new, even though I still do music, launched my whole new career of one-on-one mentoring, because people now that read the book have started to get a hold of me through email and ask me for advice with the fundamentals that are in my book. And so I started doing one-on-one mentoring, kind of like life coaching. I like mentoring better. And it's just taken off, and I really enjoy it just as much as I do to go in front of people and play jazz.
Yeah, yeah. What a beautiful opportunity you get to transform your own skill set and your experiences and truly pay it forward on a one-on-one level where you see individuals' growth and transition and awareness expand. That's a true gift for you.
Yeah, I had an interesting revelation that music is definitely God's language, but when I go out and play, I'm really entertaining and inspiring people, which is fantastic. So I've become successful at that, and it's a passion. But they still have to go back to their life after that concert. So sometimes that concert makes them feel good for an hour, and then they go back to the struggles and trials and tribulations. And I realized that after I finished my book and it was becoming in demand and getting great reviews, I went, this one-on-one mentoring may even be more self-fulfilling, because now I get to actually help people change and design from within a better life. So I'm not just inspiring people now, I'm helping them be able to fly solo, to use an expression, and actually design and achieve a better life on their own through the spiritual principles that I learned by my connection.
Right, right. What's been, since you've started this one-on-one membership, or mentorship even,
right?
What has been one of the biggest ahas through reflecting on somebody else's growth as you support them through that actually shifted your perspective on a much deeper level, where you got the growth and the awareness of something?
A very intrinsic question. I like that question. And it's very true. I learned from my researches, and I couldn't believe this, but I tested it out, that the invisible architect, the power, intelligent energy field, actually knows itself through expressing itself through our desires. And if you think about it, a parent and a child is a similar relationship. As your child expands and does well, you start knowing more about yourself. And I know as a composer, every time I write a new composition and I go through the trials of doing that, once it is done, I now am a better person from having created that. And so the one-on-one, the growth, let me back up. When I was playing the piano and studying it, and I would learn things, that's fine. But then I remember I started teaching music way back in 1980 or something. And I realized that I was becoming a better musician. I wasn't even practicing much like I had early on, but I was teaching 30 hours a week students, beginners, intermediate, advanced. And as they grew from my advice and counsel and instruction, I remember I would sit down to piano and I go, Jesus, I haven't been practicing, but I'm a lot better. And I just realized that it had something to do with helping others. And I once read a book and it said there's only two choices in a lifetime: service to yourself, serving self, or serving others. And if you really want to serve yourself, serving others is the best route. And I think that's what it is. I'm actually helping people because my goal is, as I raise people's energy and frequency towards spiritual development, towards the invisible architect frequency, they become better at designing and creating their lives. So that growth, it's almost like an addiction. Not only do I do it because I like helping people, but I get so blown out helping people that I can sit down at the piano and just about play anything and enjoy it from a, wow, this is incredible. Where before it was just me playing the piano and communicating, and I wasn't realizing that. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. It's an interesting process of doing your own practice, but also supporting and practicing others and guiding others. And I equate that to analogy of mental practice, because we can be in a space of mental practice, be it an athlete or be it an instrument. And as we guide other people through their practice, we're also mentally practicing ourselves, which from a mental state and the physical state, the mind doesn't know any different. So according to your state, and if you're supporting others for 30 hours a week in your mental mind, you're actually practicing for 30 hours a week.
Absolutely. And I'm not sure if karma is the right word, but I think the actual helping people forces you to think about what you do. In other words, I never really thought much about what I do when I played. I just studied and played. I was blessed with some talent. I had to work hard to develop it. But when you're trying to help other people and you've seen their talent potential and you're trying to help them, you have to figure out where they are and how to explain how to do X, Y, Z. And in order to do that, you have to have a bigger viewpoint than just you playing the piano or just you designing your life. And that raises your frequency even more because you've had to have a different, bigger viewpoint rather than just your narrow viewpoint. Because a good friend of mine was Chick Corea. He passed away a few years ago, and he was an amazing jazz pianist. And we knew each other really well, and he knew I taught as well as played. And he went to one of my seminars. He says, Novello, and this guy's a genius, and he says, I always have people ask me how I do this and how I do that. He goes, I don't have a clue. He goes, I guess I'm blessed and it just came easy and I do it. He goes, but listening to you speak, you seem to have figured out how to help others do that. And he said, I couldn't do that. That made me feel good because this guy, in my opinion, was up here as a musician compared to me. And he was validating this other ability that I had to help others, which reinforced that, hey, my goal this lifetime is not just to become a great composer or a great musician. I already know from my past research, I've done that several lifetimes before. This lifetime was a little different twist on the whole thing, on the ability to help and service others.
Yeah, it's beautiful. From a modern awareness for you and for the other musician of how humble we can be in our own gifts, even though we don't recognize it's a gift sometimes, because we're just walking around, living life, doing what we innately feel called to do and don't recognize our own gifts often, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, sometimes, like he said, he recognized he was blessed, but then he just did it.
Mhm.
He never thought about taking a step back and helping others. Not that he had to. He was inspiring people all over the world, but
Mhm.
I struggled more to achieve a higher level of musicianship, which was a blessing because had it become as easy as it apparently was for him, I probably wouldn't have done the kind of research philosophically and musically
Yeah,
uh, in order for me to do what I'm doing, which was a
yeah.
little bit different twist.
Which is the beautiful segue to us putting in content, time, energy, and sweat equity, if you will, into doing something rather than it just being handed to us, where we're more likely to maybe dismiss it and not give it the credence that it truly deserves when we have gifts like that.
Yeah, exactly. It's very easy to take certain things for granted. And I think when you have a little skin in the game, to use a phrase,
Yeah,
you appreciate it more and your viewpoint expands and you realize there's a much bigger game than you just doing it. You just
absolutely.
doing it, I don't really want to use this word, but it's almost narcissistic to think that it's just us
Mm,
and you're lucky.
mhm,
I've
mhm.
learned that there's a higher force. That's why I like the physics instead of
Yes,
something being invisible architect or all these different names, God, Jesus, Buddha, whatever.
sure, sure.
I chose invisible architect because an architect is something that creates and this energy is invisible. But I like the physics definition I came up with
Yeah,
more, which is the quantum intelligent energy field,
yes.
because that takes it away of just being a being sitting in the sky somewhere
Right,
with its arms
right.
folded, going, and I'm going to spot race, you're going to be this. And
Yeah, yeah,
I never bought that. I just didn't buy
yeah,
it. And now I realize this energy, because electricity is invisible to a degree,
exactly.
but it's not really
Exactly.
intelligent. It has to be programmed and routed.
That's
But this
right.
intelligent energy field seems to have a mind of its own and it can
Mhm.
orchestrate and do amazing things if we have faith and learn how to interact with it. And my definition of that is spiritual mechanics. So when I work one on one with people, I show them the spiritual mechanics of how to interact with this quantum energy field and use it in a productive way to service themselves and
Yeah,
others.
beautiful, beautiful. From my awareness of the instrument and the compositions of jazz versus classical, there is quite a contrasting composure to how the music is played, but how it also filters out. Whereas, correct me if I'm wrong, in the classical stream, it's very flowy and it's very symbiotic in nature, where there is a very smooth dance that happens. Whereas in jazz, perhaps some sharper edges that confront and interject the highs and the lows. In that, would it be fair to say that it sharpens your awareness of this additional field that we get to play in, this higher energy, this quantum field that you're talking about? Does it take you on its highs and lows when you are doing your tall, sharp highs to your interjected lows, not as fluidly as in the classical stream?
Well, one thing people have a little confusing about is jazz is definitely more improvisational and
Yes,
creative, where classical is all written out.
that's right.
However,
Hmm.
the misnomer there is those great composers, Bach, Beethoven, Schubert,
Yeah.
Chopin, Liszt, they were great improvisationalists. They used to
Hmm.
sit down at the piano and improvise the stuff that we later called classical and Baroque and Impressionism.
Right.
They improvised that on the spot,
Yes.
just like jazz guys do. The difference is when we improvise, we then write a composition, but we leave a lot of self-expression moments in the composition instead of writing every note out.
Hmm.
So in classical, when you play, most of your performance has to do
Hmm.
with your interpretation of somebody else's work. Where in jazz, yes, you interpret, but you leave room to improvise, which is more self-expressive. So to me, you can go higher when you, because we are creative beings, just like let there be light, that is a thought, that's a creation. And so when we improvise, there's more self-determinism involved in jazz. And I think that's why I graduated towards that, because I studied classical initially, but it seemed to have something missing. Just me interpreting somebody else's creation was not as exciting as my ability to completely improvise. And plus, I never knew what I was going to play. It was exciting. I could screw up. Who knows? I don't know what I'm going to play. That improvisational element, I think, is common to us because nobody has a cookie cutter life. You don't really know what's going to happen. We make
Absolutely.
choices all day long.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's an interesting perspective in terms of it not being fully written. So there is that room to play, literally and figuratively, I guess, in the space of music and in that dance between note to note and key to key. What do you believe is one of the key things about not only jazz in terms of it being a music composition, but the influence of that to the average person on the street? Whether they listen to it, they enjoy it, they don't. Is there a mirroring that really happens?
Well, one of the key elements in music is rhythm, and rhythm is synonymous with resonance and vibration. And everything in the physical universe, even in the
Mhm.
spiritual universe, has a frequency of vibration. The higher frequency you go, I believe there is more enlightenment. And so, uh, any kind of music, I don't care if it's rock and, funk, country, jazz, classical, there is rhythmic flow involved. And that rhythm, uh, actually, like a tuning fork, it doesn't do anything until you hit it, and then it vibrates at whatever frequency it was destined and created for. So we have a very we're frequency oriented energy, and this intelligent energy field is there to help us, and the vibration gets influenced by music. I once read an author where it said, uh, music reminds us we are spiritual beings. I don't remember who said it, but I loved that phrase. And I
Yes.
went, well, wait a minute. If that's true as a hypothesis, how could it and why does it remind us we're spiritual beings? Well, because we have a frequency
That's right.
of resonance,
Yeah.
and music has this rhythm in it. So if we're the tuning fork and we were created, that resonance, that music, that rhythm actually creates a vibration within us. So even if you're uninitiated and you're not a connoisseur and you're at a concert or you're in a performance, if the rhythm starts allowing you to vibrate, which may make your body go back and forth or whatever is going on,
Mhm, mhm.
that is raising your frequency and reminding you of your divine roots, in my opinion. And that's why I think I chose music this lifetime, because it does that. But then that led me into philosophy, so I could not only inspire and make people resonate and remind them that they're divine beings, but then I can now take fundamental metaphysical principles and apply directly to each person. And so now this whole concept is becoming like a music philosophy or a music philosopher, because most people that I know that are just composers and musicians just do that. And most people in the spiritual development world or mentoring or life coaching world just do that. I can't recall, and there may be, if there's somebody like myself that has a successful life as being a musician and then took some of his studies and then graduated to this other area. So to me, since music reminds us we're spiritual beings, and I can also help spiritual beings with philosophy, they go together. So I don't know. I guess it's just meant to be. I don't know.
Exactly, exactly. It's finding the synergy between another element. So I've had similar conversations with artists, artists in
You mean painter
acrylic,
artists?
painter
Yeah,
artists,
right.
so draw like two-dimensional, three-dimensional artists, and even sculptors too, having a similar conversation because perhaps something that you alluded to earlier, it's them being in a vibrational frequency in a state that allows that thinking brain to quiet, to simmer. So we can filter through another version of self and this higher wisdom that needs to be channeled through and come out in a musical piece or a physical painted piece or a depiction of something that a story needs to be told behind it. So, do you see that with your peers who are tapping into an unconscious awareness, especially in I've seen it a lot in the creative industry, but have you seen it in the musical industry within your peers?
What, that they're tapping into this spiritual vibration, you mean?
Well, yeah, a frequency, a vibration that they are not aware of, and that
Exactly.
they end up going into a space where it is the unknown and is often defined as being in the flow. So, is that a given? Is that normal language within your industry?
Well, it's not necessarily normal language, but the most normal language I've heard usually comes from the sports world, which is being in the zone.
Yes.
Athletes talk about, and I was in the zone. I was in the zone. And you said it, being in the flow.
Uh-huh.
Uh, Power, real spiritual power, is doing what you're doing when you're doing it with no thinkingness. When you're in the zone, you are just doing it. Now, lots of people do meditation and all kinds of stuff in order to null out the conscious mind and sort of become one with the universe. And then that helps you collect your energy and so you can focus, right? Uh, so to play, that's another step higher because you have to really play at a high frequency, you have to get to that zone. It's not really that helpful if you can just sit on a mountaintop and contemplate your navel and get into the zone, but now you can't really do much
Mhm.
other than, yeah, I feel good. I'm in serenity of beingness, right? Well,
Mhm.
that's all fine and dandy, but this is a very action-oriented universe. In my
Yes.
book, I call it be, do, have. Most humans have it backwards. If I had this, I would be able to do this and become
Absolutely.
X.
Yeah.
All successful people, whether they studied it or know it, they become or be what they want to have.
Mhm.
They become one with it, which would be defined as being in the zone.
Right.
Once you become one with your desire, which is the ultimate definition of affinity, even in physics, the cohesiveness of particles is affinity.
Yeah.
Once you become one with your desire and you've already succeeded to achieve that desire in your own mental universe, the resultant decisions in doing this and the assistance from the invisible architect, the quantum intelligent energy field, just happens. Next thing you know, you've achieved your desire. So, in order to achieve that desire in the real universe, the physical
Mhm.
universe, you have to have achieved it in your mental universe. So, your
Mhm.
be has to be clear, and then
Right.
that moves you towards the do, and that moves you. So, people that are very successful, whether they are aware of it or not, are being what they're trying to achieve.
Good.
and they've managed to get there, whether they've studied or blessed or an accident. But the interesting thing is the ones that don't know they're doing it sometimes can't keep doing it. So they
Yes.
have bad days and good days. Well, I wasn't in the zone, that they don't know why.
Yes.
So I've sort of, I believe, isolated some of those principles, and they're in fundamentals, and they're in my book so that people can understand those principles and be more causative at getting into the zone and using it in their life.
Mm-hmm. Doing it from a very intentional space, because life happens and we've been somewhat conditioned to allow the autopilot to take over, because there is so much monotony and mundane tasks and things that we do in life that there is a switch off moment that happens in life that doesn't allow us to be present, to be very conscious in what we do on a day-to-day level. So there is
Absolutely.
a massive influence on that. And what I'm hearing from you is that component to be present and to embody all of it by being
Exactly.
fully present.
Right. And I show people how to be fully present without necessarily having to meditate for hours and hours and achieve some
Mhm.
unbelievably high state, which is very difficult to achieve in this action-oriented universe. So there are certain fundamental and spiritual exercises that when I work one-on-one with a person, I
Sure,
help them through. Now, don't get me wrong, some people just buy the book and do it on their own. That's
sure,
fine.
of
But
course.
I have found that this area, especially from what you just said, there's so many distractions in the physical universe that if you don't have an accountable person and an expert advice and consultation, you can get so distracted that these things don't happen, and you just start to feel introverted and unlucky. And it's much better if you can be more self-determined and causative. And once you master some of these principles, which aren't hard to master if you have a mentor, it's a lot quicker, then you can start creating and designing and achieving your your better life. I call it a perfect life on purpose, because if God's all knowing and all perfect and all loving, why not go after this perfect life and get on the road to achieving that as compared to a life of mediocrity?
Absolutely. 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 So, what's other than you supporting individuals on their journey and marrying more actively the vibrational frequency in terms of tone and instruments and music, but from a metaphysical standpoint of people's awareness and their desires, and marrying those together and guiding people on that journey as they journey life? Are there other components, or is there something else or other things that you have in the works that you're looking to move forward with?
Well, I believe absolutes are unattainable. So the road that I'm on with helping people, because, in case you live under a rock, the planet's frequency seems to be dwindling. And in order to raise the frequency of humans on this planet so we create a better planet, I think it almost has to be done one on one, because group counseling doesn't seem to work because we're all individual. We all have a different path. So what I was told is, hey, one on one, raising the frequency of each person that I come across, whether it's through my books and writings and inspiration, music, or one-on-one with my mentoring, I'm contributing to the overall raising of the
Right.
planetary frequency. And even though that seems, formidable, I mean, that'd be like going to the beach and having a little teeny shovel and somebody telling you to, like, let's get all the sand off the beach. That could take forever. But I don't look at it that way. I look at it as a domino theory, because every person who I help inspire about getting into the zone causatively and raising their frequency, then they become better humans and better creations, and this world becomes a better place to live. And I feel good about that.
Good.
Um, I think that's going to keep me busy the rest of my life, this
Good.
lifetime anyway.
Well, as long as you enjoy supporting individuals on their path and their journey of discovery, that's the most important piece. Because to your analogy of it's your definition and your way and purpose of paying it forward for what you have garnered and gained from the world. From my awareness, it's the connection and the collaboration of three or more will have a more profound influence to individuals and to the vibrational frequency of the planet, which, from my perspective, is drastically having huge influence on individuals on their own spiritual growth and reflection, because the Schumann resonance, which is measured by the vibrational frequency of the planet, has shot up so much, probably more so, especially since COVID, the last 4 or 5 years. It's exponentially risen, and that's what's shaking individuals into their own awareness as who they are, and what next is to happen as they scramble through this thing called the metaphysical world and a greater purpose, a greater power, and something bigger that is offered. However, as a giver, in terms of you are in supporting others on their journey, it's equally important for us to be able to manage our own capacity of what we can give, when we can give it, and what does that look like? Is it one-to-one or is it one-to-many? So it sounds like for you, one-to-one is the beautiful caveat that you can share your wisdom with. So I'm grateful that you can share it with one-to-one and share your gifts and your knowledge and your wisdom to them. And I'm equally grateful for you to share it with me today on this conversation, that will then trickle out vibrationally to the rest of the planet. So whomever needs to hear it will hear it. So John, thank you for sharing your wisdom, your message, and your time with me today. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm Naranjan, and you've been listening to Master of Your Crafts podcast. Please subscribe, rate, and review, and join me next week for another episode. Thank you for listening.